What's going on, guys, and welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for August 26, 2022. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. We've had a lot of good SmackDowns since Triple H took over the creative reins of WWE about a month ago. This was not a bad show, but compared to some of the shows we've gotten in recent weeks and in the last month, this was not one of the stronger installments. Now, to my knowledge, they actually already taped next week's show last night, making this show, which I did not know until someone tweeted me, shout out to the doc, Chris Mueller, for letting me know. This show was not live, and I didn't see any spoilers from the show. It wasn't taped a few days ago. It was taped last night. They taped it earlier in the night because they were taping a second SmackDown right after. I'm not really looking forward to that show, and obviously I figured it'd be a tape show or a clip show or something because they're going to be at Cardiff for Clash of the Castle on Saturday, so they weren't going to do SmackDown on Friday, then the pay-per-view the next day. So they taped it last night. I'm not looking forward to that show, and it's got some solid stuff on it. They announced the complete card on this show for next week. It's going to be a dead crowd. They've done this before. They did it earlier this year, actually with a Drew and Sami match. There was that 1 or a 2-week stretch of SmackDown where Drew and Sami main evented. I think it was the Lumberjack match. This was when SmackDown was really bad. And they had already done it twice before. They did a third match, Lumberjack main event. Once again, a no contest / countout win for Drew McIntyre. And then they ran the match back at the subsequent taping and had to kick off the show inside a steel cage. So they literally did the match back-to-back in front of the same crowd with like probably 5-minute difference as far as from when they filmed it, which is pretty funny. Nonetheless, this was a decent show. Honestly, I thought the best part about this episode of SmackDown was the video packages they did on Drew McIntyre, chronicling his return to WWE, his downfall, originally coming back, winning the championship. Kind of like an abbreviated WWE 24. We've heard Drew's story so much on TV and in documentaries, even in his book and stuff like that. It's been done to death. But it's a really interesting story, and it really makes you feel like between that, what we saw last week, what we saw this week, it really sends the message that Drew is probably leaving Cardiff as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. I kind of came to terms with that already a couple of weeks ago. If it were up to me, if I were Triple H, it sounds, I don't know, it's hard to give people a video package like that and the treatment they've given Drew and then to have him lose. That is definitely not ideal. But still, I really want Cody to be the one to beat, Roman for both belts. Drew is not the worst choice. I just don't think, I do feel like there's better options. But given the circumstances of where they're going to be in the build-up they've given this match and accomplishing that big fight feel, I do think you might have a deflating reaction in Cardiff if they have Roman Reigns win. It's not going to be massive cheers, I can tell you that much. But I don't know. I'm still undecided. Maybe my mind will change in the next couple of days, and until we do predictions on WrestleRant Radio and in articles and stuff. But right now, I'm leaning towards Drew, and that was pretty evident on this show. Between those video packages and the one they did on Shayna, Liv and Shayna were not on the show in person, but they did build up Shayna with a very good video package, highlighting her time in NXT, mentioning the fact that she was NXT Women's Champion for over a year. We heard it during the Gunther segment later on with Sheamus on the show. They mentioned he's the longest reigning NXT UK champion of all time. And I guarantee you they did not mention that when Gunther was first called up a few months ago. And Gunther's been booked perfectly. But sometimes it's the little touches, not even from another company's history, which would be cool too. They don't even, or at least in the past, have not referenced their own fucking history. And they would completely forget about people's NXT accolades, NXT UK accolades. That's a championship that's about to go defunct, at least for the time being until NXT Europe launches next year. And they referenced the fact that Gunther held that championship for over 2 years. So I was really happy with that. But overall, I thought this was a decent show, made stronger by the video packages, and made weaker by the tag team title tournament stuff. And I've honestly largely been fine with what they've done in this tournament as far as the matches. Most of the matches have been fine. The injuries have been unfortunate. I wouldn't use the word derailed as far, the tournament's cursed. Yeah, I guess, but Nikita Lyons, or rather Zoe Stark getting hurt didn't really bother me. Gigi Dolan getting hurt was a bummer. They made up for that on the show, and they had the team go over that was probably going to win if Nikita and Zoe were in there, in Sonya and Natalya. So we didn't have a heel versus heel matchup on... No, that would have been face versus heel, actually. But anyway, we had Sonya and Natalya advancing on the show. They beat the teams of Nikki Ash and Doudrop, Dana Brooke and Tamina, and Xia Li and Shotzi in a second-chance fatal four-way tag team match to advance to the semifinals of the tag team tournament a little bit later on in the show. That match was not good. This did not kick off the show. I'll get back to the opener in a second. I don't know why I mentioned this first. I'll get back to that match in a second as far as Ricochet and Corbin starting the show. This was not good. This was only a few minutes long. They tried to rush a lot and cram a lot in there within a very short span of time. Nikki Ash seemingly getting hurt. It did not look good when she came down on her leg. She was like clutching it or her ankle or whatever. We saw her and Doudrop arguing in the back afterward during a backstage segment with Sonya and Natalya cutting a promo before their match with Raquel and Aliyah. So hopefully that means she's okay, and they're also building to either a split between the two or, at the very least, ditching their current characters to become who they were previously. Nikki Cross coming back would be much more preferable, not because I'm a major Nikki Cross fan. She is very good, and that character was good when she did it a couple of years ago. But the Nikki Ash shit is terrible. Piper Niven would be far better off than fucking Doudrop, so I hope we get that. But the match itself was not good. What actually kicked off the show, that I forgot to mention, as they mentioned a second ago actually, was Ricochet and Happy Corbin, the rematch from a few weeks ago. This was good. I enjoyed their original encounter more. I thought that had more energy, even though this started the show, and it started the show last time too. This was good. I was fully expecting Corbin to avenge the loss to Ricochet, get back to his winning ways, because they keep stressing he's on a losing streak right now, and he did not win. Ricochet won again clean. So I don't know how much of a renewed push this is really going to lead to for Ricochet, but Corbin, I'm very intrigued to see where they go next, and I'm continuing to hope he goes back, a lot like Kevin Owens, to his NXT persona as the Lone Wolf. The Jim Johnston song, bringing that back into days would be ideal, because that song was fucking great. I don't care about any rights issues. They have Johnny Gargano using Rebel Heart again. That's a CFO song. I don't want to hear any shit about, they can't bring it back. They absolutely can bring it back if they really wanted to. And I hope they do. But the match was fine, though. After that stuff, we had Gunther and Sheamus facing off in the ring, while Butch and Ludwig Kaiser brawled in the background. Gunther and Sheamus not flinching at all, just staring each other down the entire time. I thought that was really good. The actual verbal exchange I thought was also strong. Sheamus mentioning that he's won every piece of gold in WWE aside from the Universal Championship, which he did not mention, but most notably the Intercontinental Championship. And he wants that title at Clash of the Castle. Gunther spoke as well. I thought this was good. For a heel versus heel matchup, I think the match sells itself. And you would never know that it was a heel versus heel matchup because come Cardiff, that crowd is not going to give a fuck. They're going to go crazy for both guys, and it should be a great barn burner of a match. I still hope Gunther retains because it's still early in his reign to be losing it, but Sheamus becoming champion in the UK would be pretty cool, I got to admit. But yeah, this was good stuff as well. I'm probably going a bit quicker with this stuff than I normally would, but there really wasn't a lot of substance to this show. Raquel Rodriguez and Aliyah facing Deville and Natalya in the semifinals of the Women's Tag Team Title Tournament. Decent match. Aliyah's still fucking abysmal. I mean, I mentioned this a lot. I think it's become more apparent to people that were not watching her NXT tenure. She's just not that good. I do think the Raquel tag team helps, though, because Raquel's bland right now as a babyface. She has momentum to an extent, not a ton, but they have that same dynamic that Raquel had with Dakota in NXT. Like that Shawn Michaels, Diesel dynamic, like bigger person, smaller person. Aliyah's no fucking Shawn Michaels, don't get me wrong. She's not even close to being on Dakota's level. But the dynamic works. It protects her as far as limits her in the ring and stuff like that. So that's fine. They advanced as they should have. Bayley, Dakota, and Io were on SmackDown again. So we also had the Street Profits on the show. The Bayley, Dakota, Io stuff was fine because they're going to be in the semifinals on Monday. So them advancing or them, showing up here to face off with Raquel and Aliyah was fine because we're getting the match on Monday's Raw for the tag team titles. And if you're wondering, whoa, why aren't they doing it at the pay-per-view? It's because Dakota and Io are also already at the pay-per-view in action alongside, obviously, fucking Bayley, obviously, facing Bianca, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. So they're not pulling double duty, and I hope they win and they go into the pay-per-view as champions. It's possible that the babyfaces cost them the match. Aliyah being a champion is not ideal in any circumstance, in any universe, but in any timeline. But it would give Raquel something to do, and it's, I still say this leads to Sasha and Naomi coming back. So if you do that, and they come back soon, then I'm not really sure why you would have Raquel and Aliyah as champions if they're all going to be babyfaces. Unless Sasha and Naomi come back as heels, which Sasha thrives as a heel, but I don't think she's coming back as a heel. People are going to cheer when she does come back, so I don't know if I would do that. But anyway, I thought this was fine. Like I mentioned, we also had the Street Profits on the show, backstage interacting with Hit Row and Maximum Male Models, those teams are having a match next week on the show. I'm not really sure why the Profits were there, and I really hope, as I mentioned before, they can stick to the brand split rules and keep people exclusive to their own shows coming out of Clash of the Castle. I don't know if they already made the schedules and shit as far as, who was going to be where and on what show, and the Profits were already booked for SmackDown a while ago. I mean, they could have canceled it for one thing, but I don't know if they already made that official, and that's why they were there. They serve no purpose. I like the Profits, but it's like, why were they on this show? They're Raw superstars. They serve no purpose on this show. So they really have to do a better job at Triple H of keeping people exclusive to their own brands and not muddying the waters of the brand split. If you're going to do it, you have to stick to it. You can't do this Vince McMahon wild card bullshit where we see Raw stars on SmackDown and SmackDown stars on Raw if it doesn't make sense, and this didn't make sense. The New Day was back, advertised to be back, did not make a big surprise return. They were already in the ring, cutting a promo, all somber, acting all somber after being attacked by the Viking Raiders in recent weeks. Xavier Woods was sitting in a wheelchair, and he had a blanket over one of his legs. And he was wearing a red, I think an up-down shirt or New Day Rock shirt, but it was the old Wolfpack style of shirt. As soon as you saw him in the wheelchair, and as soon as you saw him, with that shirt on, specifically not just the red shirt, but that shirt, specifically, you had to know where this was going. And it played out predictably. It was fine. Set up the Viking rules match for next week, the tag team match, which is going to be no rules, essentially, according to the commentators. But listen, I've never watched aside from I think the first one, I've never watched more than 1 or 2 full episodes of Nitro ever. I was not watching WCW back in the day. But if you've spent any period of time on Twitter, then you would know that Kevin Nash stepping out of the wheelchair and faking the leg injury is a very famous meme among wrestling fans. So you probably recognize it as much as I did, as quickly as I did. And that's exactly what happened. The Raiders came down to the ring. They cornered Kofi. Woods gets out of the wheelchair. He, obviously takes the blanket off, reveals he has Singapore canes, kendo sticks, gives it to Kofi. They fend off the Viking Raiders, and that was it. So, fine, predictable segment, setting up next week's tag team match, which will hopefully be the blow-off for this feud, which has been a fine feud, don't get me wrong. But I'm hoping that's going to be the end of these two teams against each other, and we don't get a million fucking matches between these teams like we did with New Day and the Brawling Brutes a couple of months ago. We can then get to the main event, and we had other backstage segments with Sami and Roman, which was amazing, and that lasted like 4 or 5 minutes, setting up this match, because Roman was disappointed that Sami lost. And they were like, well, you can go in there tonight and win, and we'll be proud of you, you honorary Uce and all this other shit. Gaslighting Roman Reigns is the best Roman Reigns. We see it with him, or have seen it in the past with him and the Usos, and we're seeing it again now with him and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was once again the MVP of this show. The match itself was good, but like I said earlier, they already had a whole series of matches earlier this year. It really wasn't a barn burner of a match. They were given, 10 minutes or whatever. It was a good match, but correct, predictable outcome. Nothing really special about it. The post-match angle I thought was well done. McIntyre attempted to fend off the Bloodline, was unsuccessful this week, as Sami also, aided Roman Reigns, and the Usos were back. So it was a 4-on-1 attack. They brutally beat the fuck out of him with a series of chair shots to the back. His back looked brutal on Twitter when he showed a picture of it after the fact. Roman Reigns laying out Drew with a Superman punch and a spear and all that other sort of stuff. So pretty straightforward attack, but I thought it was well done, putting more heat on the heel group, making Roman, he's already a threat, obviously, but kind of avenging that attack from last week, getting his revenge on Drew McIntyre alongside the Usos and Sami Zayn. And the closing shot of this show was fucking money, with Roman Reigns sitting in a chair that he just attacked Drew McIntyre with, holding both belts, sitting over Drew, while the Usos were beside him. I don't know if they had their championships. I don't think so. And Sami Zayn barely being seen in the background and in between, like, Roman and Jay or Roman and Jimmy, right, like, in between the shoulder. It was a great over-the-shoulder shot of Sami Zayn in the background, trying to fit in with the rest of the Bloodline. This is probably the best story they're telling right now in all of WWE. It's not even close. And I'm very anxious to see how they pay it off, if they know where they're going with this. Storytelling 101 would indicate that they have Sami Zayn and Owens team up to take out the Usos for the tag titles, especially after the interactions that the Usos have had with Owens in recent weeks. That's what I would do. But we'll see. I don't know. But I thought the closing to the show was probably among the best parts, along with the Roman and Sami segment earlier. and the video packages. So not exactly a strong SmackDown. I don't imagine next week's SmackDown will be all that much better because it will be a tape show. They're either going to have piped in crowd noise or just a dead crowd. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to do a review next week because now with the pay-per-views on Saturdays, I think I did a SmackDown review before Money in the Bank. I don't remember. I'm not even sure if I'm going to have time. I don't even think I'm going to do a SmackDown review. Just thinking about it now, they said last night, which I was not aware of, the show Eastern time starts at fucking 1 o'clock. So I don't even think I'm going to have time to do the review next week. So just a heads up. I'm not even sure about Talking Smack. I may do a Talking Smack review at some point. I may not. Because there is stuff that happens on SmackDown that has nothing to do with the pay-per-view. So I'll probably watch and review that regardless, as I always do. The formal SmackDown review will probably skip next week with the pay-per-view being so early on Saturday. But they are advertising, as I mentioned earlier, the Viking Rules tag team match between New Day and the Viking Raiders. We're getting Maximum Male Models versus Hit Row. We're getting the update on Ronda Rousey's fate as far as her being arrested and not arrested and whatever, what the future holds for her and her suspension. The celebration of Roman Reigns as Universal Champion. And I thought we were getting, the in-ring debut of Karrion Kross as well, which I'm looking forward to. So it sucks that he's going to have to debut on a dead show, and the crowd's probably going to be completely lifeless for his entrance. But it's going to be cool to finally see his full-on entrance on SmackDown. They teased it again this week, and he cut a quick promo on Drew, and I thought it was very well done following one of Drew's video packages. But, I'm looking forward to that next week. So, fine stuff from SmackDown. Really nothing you need to go out of your way to see. Not a bad show, but certainly not on the same level as previous SmackDowns from the last month. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. And we're going to have a Talking Smack review up at some point, either today or tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. That'll be up eventually. And then more interviews to come here on the channel. Rey Mysterio, my chat with Rey Mysterio is probably dropping tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. A lot of other interviews from this summer as well, and more to come. I'll actually be at WWE Springfield tonight, the house show happening on Saturday night in Massachusetts. So looking forward to that and talking to a few superstars there as well. Hopefully those interviews will be updated here on the channel, uploaded on the channel when I have time at some point in the next few weeks. So with all that being said, guys, have an awesome one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.